guys are always so much different than our female counterparts. So most of the time, it would be like not speaking to each other. Like obviously, there's tension in the air and stuff like that, and then like
Mhm.
somebody talking about playing a video game, some Super Nintendo, somebody talking about let's go play some basketball and stuff like that. And then sadly, me and the other person who was fighting had to end up on a team and us
Mhm.
winning together. All of a sudden, we're best friends again, probably going to ask if they can spend the night tonight. Things,
Okay.
it would just naturally work out, but because we're all in the group and I'm not leaving the group if he ain't leaving the group. So if it's four or
Mm.
five of us, we're going to be dealing with each other.
Mhm.
And so it was just more natural. I think the more you're not in front of a screen like we are while I'm saying that,
Right.
the more, you're not checking for likes and nothing wrong with checking for like I check for likes. Instant
Mhm.
gratification is wonderful. It's,
Mhm. Right.
but too much of anything could be possibly a bad thing. And I think this generation, it, especially that 18 to 30 crowd, has to figure out how that works for them and figure out the best way to going forward to have a successful life or what they call success, while at the same time understanding what it's like to have a high powered computer in your pockets.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, you and I would have grown up without that. And so we have life experience, especially our young years where that just wasn't even a thing. Like we couldn't have even imagined that. And then this generation is growing up. I mean, my kids would be at they're in this age group. My oldest is at the upper end of that. She's 28. Um, so they didn't have smartphones when they first started, but pretty quickly, like by the time they were, teens, they had smartphones. And the younger kids just grew up with smart technology available to them all the time.
100% exactly. And so I think, a lot of people want to point at different directions, like, the changing of just overall the world or American culture and stuff like that. And where is this generation's place within that American culture? Like, you hear things like, I was talking to a gentleman recently and he was 30 years old and it was like, blue collar jobs are drying up. We're losing it to automation.
Hmm. Yeah.
And white collar jobs are too expensive because college has just inflated how much it
Yeah.
costs to get that. People don't want to get those loans and get the credit. But when I was growing up, and maybe it's cultural too, but when I was growing up, I never even got spoken to about credit.
Mm.
What I
Yeah.
knew was, for me, what worked for me was get a college degree, try to get to a certain amount of cash that'll allow
Hmm.
you to buy a house and so on and so on. And so
Hmm.
I don't remember ever speaking to anybody in my generation until we were well into our adulthood about credit.
Yeah.
This
Yes.
generation is very aware of their credit and much better than we are of their
Hmm.
credit, what that means, what it means to take on debt. So, while there are some negatives, they're much more aware.
Hmm.
And I think that changes how they move because I think it can make you almost stagnant because if you do one thing, you could be losing a job in the next decade. If you
Hmm.
do another thing, you could be trying to pay for that thing for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to figure out like where I want to move from that standpoint.
Hmm. Well, I think, so I'm Gen X and I know with the baby boomers, I mean, our, at least in America, our economy was very different. They could afford college. They could live their life and not go into debt.